Hey, welcome back. So in the last video, we discussed taking the call, how to talk to sellers, and how to start building the relationship with sellers. Now in this video, we're going to discuss actually scheduling and then attending what we call the buy appointment. In our model, and a lot of successful real estate investors' models, we say we buy at the kitchen table, we buy in the living room. We actually physically go meet people at their house, try to continue that relationship building process, ultimately look at the house and evaluate repairs and some other things we're going to talk about in future lessons, and then ultimately make an offer on the house. That's what this business is all about. So let's jump into actually setting the appointment. This is where we left off from the last lesson. I'd encourage you to have preset times that you're available to attend appointments. We like, in our market here, 10 a.m., 1 p.m., and 4 p.m. And I'll tell you why. I live in a large market here. It takes more time to drive around from appointment to appointment than it does to actually attend an appointment. So we need time between our appointments to get from one appointment to the next. We've also found that if you say, well, yeah, I'm interested in, can I come out and meet you? When can you meet? It really kind of sounds unprofessional. You want to say, look, we have a 1 p.m. Time tomorrow or 10 a.m. the following day. Which one of those work for you? It's kind of human nature to actually choose from the options in front of you, which is why a lot of restaurants are successful with having different combos and meal numbers, because you don't have to figure it out. You just order kind of preset items. You're willing to just basically take something off of the menu as you're presented, and that's effectively what you're trying to do here. Also, it allows us to run an efficient business. It allows you to be efficient with your time. If you just meet at random times, then they're going to end up being days where you can't go on 3 appointments, which we think is kind of the max. If you're in a smaller market where it's easier to get to and from appointments, you might be able to fit 4 in there. Okay. Now, by the way, we have some flexibility here. If folks say, you know what, I really like to meet at 9 because I need to get to work, then we make that work. 4 p.m., one of the main reasons we like 4 p.m. is during daylight savings time, we can still see the outside of the house. But if folks say, hey, I can't meet until after work and I get there at 5:30, is there any way we can do that? Then we find a way to make it work. Hopefully that makes sense. The important thing is that you try to meet within the next 24 to 48 hours. Time kills deals in this business. It's pretty common that they're talking to more investors than just you, and time is not your friend. We also use a Google Calendar, to give you another tip here, to schedule our time. We can share our Google Calendar with multiple acquisitions managers, our salespeople, our admin team, me, myself, our entire team. You can invite to a Google Calendar. It's free, super easy to use, very mobile friendly, and everybody on your team can be on the same page. Now, when scheduling an appointment, it's also important to get what we call the upfront contract, to try to set the expectations and to get the seller to confirm that they understand. Here's a couple of things that you should do. Is one, to say, look, our appointments typically last about 60 minutes. We don't really call them acquisitions managers. So we say a home buying expert or a consultant is going to come out and actually look at your house. It's going to take approximately 60 minutes. We're really going to try to understand your situation and see if we can help you. Would 60 minutes be okay for you? It's important to set that expectation of time, because you don't want them to think that you only need 10 or 15 minutes and you get to the appointment and they're in a rush to leave because they thought the appointment was going to be shorter. Secondly, part of the upfront contract is to let them know that you don't buy every house that you look at, that you're often not the right fit for people or the solution they're looking for, that you are probably the easiest solution available, but you're not sure that's going to be the right fit for them. It's very important that you get them to say or agree that it's okay for them to tell you no. A lot of people will leave you by saying, well, I need to think about it, I'm not really sure. You need to let them know that it's okay to tell me no. And if you can't say yes and you're going to think about it, then I'm just going to assume that that's a no. And no is okay. Okay, there's a lot of psychology in there. So let's talk about preparing, actually physically preparing for the appointment. Now in my team, we have admins that are preparing our salespeople to go on appointments. If you're just getting started, you may be playing all these roles. In fact, throughout these lessons, you're going to hear me talk about different roles in my business. If you're just getting started, you might be wearing all those hats. When I first started, my wife and I basically did everything. For some people that are not working with a spouse, the one person might be doing everything. That's not the end goal. That might be where you are when you're getting started, and that's okay. So if you hear me talk about these different roles, know that that's the angle I'm coming from. So preparing for the appointment. It's very important that you are prepared at the time you meet with a seller. The easiest thing to do is just to prepare in advance. As soon as the appointment is set, pull together all the information that you're going to need. So what is that information that could be important for you to know when you're going on an appointment? Well, the main things are comps from the MLS, data where other houses have sold recently. The MLS is the most comprehensive because, again, as I mentioned in previous lessons, about 95% of the transactions in America happen on the MLS. So those recent the information about recent sales is really what you need to understand what the after repaired value, what is the value of the property you're looking at after all repairs are done, what is it worth? It also allows you to see who your competition is, how many houses are on the market, how many days are they typically on the market, how fast are they typically selling, and lots of other information. So you have to have MLS data. Next, tax data. It's usually publicly available. You can get it from your county tax office or city tax office in some instances, but you can get that from the tax assessor and get things like square footage, number of bedrooms and baths. Sometimes you can learn information about the seller as to how long they've owned it and what the value of the tax has been over time. Now, the tax value is ultimately a meaningless number. It has nothing to do, as far as I'm concerned, with the real value of the property, what you'd be willing to pay or what somebody else is willing to pay. So you don't really need the tax value number as much as you want to get the square footage and some other information about the property. I will tell you, in my experience, taxing authority data is commonly wrong. So trust but verify. Okay. One other important thing I'll say about the tax value of a property, which has nothing to do with the real market value, is sometimes sellers cling to that number like it's a value. Somebody's appraised my house for this. The reality is the tax appraiser, it's the fox watching the hen house. They have put a value on it, but they're not actually willing to come write a check for that number. So just know that the tax value of a property is ultimately a meaningless number as far as I'm concerned, but sometimes the seller's expectations of the value of their property is based on that number because that's all they know. That's all they know. So just know that. Now, what you also need are notes from the initial script. In the last video, we talked about the script that we follow. We actually are giving that to you again in our Getting Started guide. If you haven't downloaded that, make sure you do so that you can get our script. But in my office, the admins are filling out that script, capturing that information. And then my sales guys are going out, and they need that information. They've never talked to a seller. They often don't know anything about the appointment until a half hour or so before the appointment. So I refer to that last part as Act 1 of the play. We refer to this part as Act 2. This is the acquisitions person or the salesperson that's going out, reading Act 1 quickly, the cliff notes of it, if you will, before they start Act 2. So you need the notes from that initial script and the conversation so that your salespeople, whoever is going on Act 2, again, it might be the same person, it might be you doing all this, but so that you can refresh yourself or the salesperson can learn what the situation is, why they called, a little bit more about the motivation. Some other information out there there's a lot of other information that could be important. Maybe they say they recently had it listed on the MLS, so you might pull up previous listing information or other things that you think are useful. Now let's talk for a moment here about MLS comps. How do you get this data? In my market, there's only a few markets that I'm aware this exists. There are some subscriptions that you can buy without being a realtor where I can get access to MLS data. I'm not aware of very many markets in the country that have that. The best source for MLS data is to get it through a realtor. So why would a realtor just give you access to the MLS? Now, first off, a lot of real estate, maybe some people watching this actually are licensed, so you don't have to worry about that, obviously. But you do have to make it worth that person's while. Some ways that I've seen it work before is you have a realtor that's kind of part of your team. Okay, I'm not licensed. We have another realtor that sells our houses for us, somebody that we've used for lots and lots of properties over time. If you have a relationship like that and you say, I'll let you list my properties, or if you bring me a deal, I will give you the buyer and seller side commission, find a way to make it worth their while. Every MLS is different, every market is different. In my market and lots of other markets, realtors can set up what's referred to as an unlicensed assistant. So it could be an admin that's in their office that needs access to help the realtor out. So you might be able to become an unlicensed assistant where you help them with some things and you get access to the MLS. What I would advise you not to do is to come into a situation where you're working with a realtor and they say, every time you need comps, just let me know and we'll run them for you. You need to be able to get comps in the middle of the night if you need it while you're in your boxers, and you need to be able to get it within seconds, not hours or days from now whenever they get a chance to run it. So asking, can you send me this, is a recipe for disaster. I promise you, you need information now when you need it. So let's talk about a bonus that we have for you in this lesson. To make sure that you are prepared for appointments, we have prepared and provided a simple checklist, again, in our ultimate guide here. Make sure you download this if you haven't already. Inside of this lesson, the section on this lesson, we're giving you a simple checklist that you can make sure you're prepared for pulling all the data, setting the expectations with sellers that you need. Hey guys, just a quick reminder that you can get access to all 10 of the training videos in this masterclass that we call the Ultimate Get Started in Real Estate Investing Guide and Program, as well as this awesome supplemental guide with incredibly valuable copies of our contracts, scripts, checklists, and many more by visiting us at flipnerd.com/free training. That's flipnerd.com/free-training. 2 separate words there. You'll get immediate access to all 10 lessons of this powerful masterclass. I know you're watching it on YouTube right now, but that's how you get all of our downloadable checklists and all sorts of other information. You'll get immediate access to all 10 of our lessons of this powerful masterclass. You'll get this free resource guide, and we'll share some other powerful content with you as well. So go on over to flipnerd.com/free training. That's free-training now to get registered. Again, I've said it before, you only have one chance to make a great first impression, and you're likely only going to have one shot to truly help the sellers you're meeting with. So I want to make sure that you're prepared. Again, you can find that inside of the Ultimate Guide. Let's talk about attending the appointment. So I'd like to share with you some guidance on what to do when you're actually meeting with sellers. Well, first and most important, be on time. Be on time. You should actually get in the neighborhood maybe 20 minutes or so ahead of time. That's what we do. We actually drive around and look at comps. Now, comps are comparable sales, other recent sales in the neighborhood. Some people just rely at looking this on the paper that you could print out or looking at it online. I would highly encourage you to drive by those houses. Some houses have water towers in the backyard, are up against busy roads, have train tracks nearby, lots of other obstructions that will dramatically change the value, right? So if your property has that and the others don't, they should be worth more than yours. It's really important that you actually physically drive the comparable sales that you're looking at. So you got to be on time. I'd recommend getting out in the neighborhood 20 to 30 minutes in advance, doing some homework, looking around the neighborhood to see what you can learn about it before you meet with the seller. It also gives you a chance to get there a little bit early in case you hit some traffic or something goes wrong. So just be on time. Really critical for that first impression. What I advise is spend as much time as possible when you meet with the seller, building rapport and actually not talking about the house. We try to not talk about the house for as long as possible. If I see they have a bass mounted on the wall, I might ask them about fishing. If I see they have a picture of a bunch of grandkids, we might start talking about the grandkids. At the end of the day, you're trying to build a relationship to help people, and until you know that person better, until you understand some of the things about them, and until you've gotten them to open up with you, you just don't have that rapport for them to really tell you more about what's going on. So we advise trying to talk about anything other than the house for as long as possible until it starts to become uncomfortable that I guess we should talk about the house a little bit. Now when you're ready, you want to start evaluating the property. Now we're giving away our property analysis form, how you can evaluate in about 10 minutes or less how much the repairs are going to cost for a house. That's in a future lesson coming up here, so you'll get access to that. So I'm not going to talk about that now. But after you've evaluated the repairs for a house, what you typically want to do is excuse yourself from the house. So basically what we say is, hey, we're going to go to the car and run my numbers. truthfully, you need that time. You shouldn't be getting out a calculator in front of them and calculating an offer right there. You might consider calling a business partner or a spouse, even let them know I need to call the office, right? You don't want them to think you're making all the decisions and you can just do it really quick on the back of a napkin, because that, one, gives the impression, it's very impersonal, and two, it gives the impression that, well, you're making all the decisions right here, maybe I can negotiate more with you. So what you want to do is kind of excuse yourself. Truthfully, if you're meeting with a husband and wife or more than one person, it's no different than if you bought a car. That opportunity for you to leave and get your thoughts together is also an opportunity for them to think a little more about, well, what do you think? What do you think his offer is going to be? How much is the least we're willing to take? It gives them a chance to reflect on it and get a little more, confident with making a decision on the spot, which is what you want, if you can. Now, that doesn't always happen, but that is the goal. So you might excuse yourself to go to the car for about 10 minutes. Come back, and at that point, you're going to make your offer. I would ask them for honest feedback. I'm going to tell you a couple things. One is, it's okay to be nervous. It's okay to be embarrassed to give an offer. Use that to your advantage. Don't be so nervous to make an offer that you don't give an offer. Never leave a house and say, I'm going to go run some numbers and I'll call you back. Okay? We teach people that if anybody ever says that, to discredit that person as an investor. Ma'am, I'm sorry, I don't think that person is really interested in buying your house. I don't think they have the ability to, which is why they didn't make you an offer on the spot. I believe with every ounce of my being, real investors make offers on the spot. 100% of the time. Maybe 99% of the time. There might be some reason once in a great while that you don't, but I would highly advise you to make offers on the spot. It's very easy for that relationship you've built to break down on the phone. Okay? So when you come back and you make an offer, and again, it's okay to say you're embarrassed. Gosh, I know you're not going to like this offer. I don't even know if I want to give it to you. I'm so embarrassed. Right? Start acting embarrassed. If you are embarrassed, don't try to hide it. What will often happen is the seller might even console you. Oh, don't worry about it. It might, even if it's not a fit, we can talk about it. They might start to console you and feel bad for you. Now, I'm not saying to do it as an act, but you're going to be nervous. After, meeting with thousands and thousands of sellers over the years, I'm still embarrassed to give offers sometime. Right? So it's an easy way to break the ice to just say, I don't think you're going to like this, but here's what we came up with. Okay? Now, what I would advise you is, again, to go back. We talked about setting the upfront contract before. That no is okay. If you don't like this, you just need to tell me no. If it's not a fit, I understand. Okay? Then give the offer and ask to discuss it. Now, if they say, well, no, that's not going to work for us. Sometimes they say, well, we need to think about it. And you can kind of tell that they really are just don't want to tell you no, but they know the answer. You know the answer is no. And you can say, look, if you need to think about it, I understand it's probably not a fit. Let's just kind of assume the answer is no now. And so, since it's not going to work out for us, maybe you could just tell me what it is that you wanted, like how far apart are we really? Okay? I would encourage you to find a way to just talk openly and honestly with a person. If you've done a good job of building rapport, that actually will be easier. So let's talk about how to calculate your offer. At a high level, you need to be able to buy properties in a way that considers what you estimate you could sell it for. You have to know what you're going to sell it for, approximately what you think you could sell it for, and earn a respectable profit. So you need to consider what you're going to do with the property. Who might buy it? Are you going to wholesale it? Are you going to sell it to another investor? What price might they be willing to pay? You learn this through experience. You can learn this through watching others doing this in your market. You can learn this from mentors and coaches if you have them, about how to price a property. I know investors are going to pay this, and therefore, if I can buy it here, then this is my profit. You need to really understand that. You need to watch the market for it. So consider that an investor must believe that they're going to buy a property at a discount big enough for them to make money on it. If you're selling to another investor, there has to be meat on the bones for the next guy. If you're selling it on the retail market, it should be fairly easy. It's not always easy, but easier for you to determine what that after repaired value are, what the market value is, what you think you'd be able to sell it for in the event that you were to rehab it and sell it. So I can tell you that Most wholesale and rehab investors use an acronym, the ARV, the after repaired value. The ARV is the estimated value of the property after all the repairs are completed and the house doesn't need anything. It's fully retail ready. Investors that are keeping a house as a rental often don't care much about ARV. They're much more concerned with how well the house will cash flow or based on some other metric, return on investment, which is also based on the type of financing, how much the taxes are, what their estimates are for vacancy and maintenance and things like that. So rental type investors don't care much for ARV. They're looking at it in other ways. But over time, you can start to understand those prospective people that you might sell to, what it is they're looking for. Historically, wholesale buyers may be willing to buy deals from you at up to about 75% of the ARV. Now, please know this is a broad brush statement. You don't want to make that assumption everywhere across the country right now, no matter where you're at, just based on what I said here. It differs greatly on markets. If you're in a smaller, less competitive market, there aren't as many wholesale buyers, and they may expect to buy well below this price. That means you need to buy it for even less if you're going to have some margin in there for yourself. And you're not doing this for free, right? This is to make money. So you need to understand what your customers will pay so that you can make sure you're buying well below that. In markets like Dallas, Tampa, Phoenix, or similar, competition is fierce and prices are driven up. So that means that investors are willing to pay more for houses generally. And so if you have to pay a little more, there might still be a respectable profit there. Just do your homework in the market where you're at. There's a ton of deals that are posted on even flipnerd.com or Facebook and other groups in your local market. You can start to get a feel for what people are willing to pay. So let's talk about how to calculate an offer. Now let's use the assumption for this example that you could sell a property for 75% of the ARV less repairs. It's critical to point out that your estimate of ARV and your estimate of repairs needed is your estimate. Not everybody will agree with your estimate. It's possible that nobody will agree with you. As a wholesaler, you need to get good at estimating. You need to get good at learning what it's going to cost to repair a house and how to determine market values. So we're going to dive into these topics in great detail in the lessons on evaluating values and evaluating repairs. So for now, we're just going to continue on here. Now, if you estimate too low on your ARV and or too high on your repairs, you are leaving money on the table. If you estimate too high on the ARV and too low on the repairs, you'll have a hard time finding buyers for your deals. You'll have deals fall through, and you're going to tarnish your name in the process. There are plenty of wholesalers here in my market that whenever I see them market anything, I just delete it because I don't believe their numbers. They have kind of lied to me too many times, okay? So if you're selling your property at 75% of the ARV less repairs, your ability to generate a profit is based on how far below that number you're able to buy the property at, right? So for example, let's assume a $100,000 house that you estimate needs $15,000 in repairs. Now, if you're confident that you can sell it at 75% of ARV less repairs, you're confident in your numbers so that other people will agree with them, then that means that you could sell it for 75% times 100,000, which gets you to 75,000, and then subtract out the 15,000 in repairs. You need to be able to buy that. You think you could sell it for 60,000. Now, if you'd like to be able to, say, make $10,000 on it at least, then you'll need to be able to buy this for $50,000 or less. Does that make sense? You've calculated that 75% of ARV less the repairs is 60,000. That's what you can sell it for, you believe. In order to make money, you need to buy it for less. So if you want to make 10, you got to buy it for 10,000 less. If you're hoping to make at least 20, you need to be able to buy it for 20,000 less. Now, historically, we usually make offers on properties for around 65% of the ARV less repairs. But in a competitive market like we're in now, we found that we sometimes have to go up a bit. You have a couple options in a competitive market. You can start to pay more for houses because you believe that you have to because that's where the market's at. Or you can stick to your guns and almost assure that it's a little bit harder to get deals, but when you get them, that there's plenty of meat on the bones for you. But we found in this market we sometimes have to go up a bit. In fact, sometimes we find a buyer that's willing to pay well more than 75% of ARV. Historically, I think that's crazy, but it is happening right now in this market. So going up in price doesn't necessarily mean that our margins are getting squeezed, because sometimes we can sell them for more than we historically can. Let's go through one more example. I just want to make sure that you understand this. By the way, you can use your guide here to take some notes. Write down some of these examples. Make sure you understand the math if this is new to you. And if it's not, then just continue to follow along here, and we'll get past some of this more elementary stuff. Example 2, let's assume the estimated ARV for a property is $250,000. You estimate that the repairs are $30,000. Now, if you were buying at 65%, your offer would look like this. $250,000 times 65% equals $162,500. $162,500 minus the $30,000 in repairs that you estimated would mean that you are going to offer $132,500 for this property. Do you follow that? Does it make sense? If you're hearing these numbers and you don't believe it's possible to buy houses at those levels, I'm just going to tell you that it's wrong. You can't go out and buy every house for this, but some of the time, if you're in this business enough, you're going to find people that will sell at a discount, that have to sell at a discount like this. If you're serving a distressed buyer, and most likely you're going to be talking about a distressed house, that's where these opportunities are. Now, I've done hundreds and hundreds of houses. On average, our purchase price as a percentage of what we sold it for is about 42% across over 350 deals. The opportunity is there. You just have to get good at building relationships and finding those sellers that are truly distressed and need to sell at a deep discount. Often it's houses that need a lot of work. Often. Let's talk about making the offer a little bit more. I talked about this a few minutes ago. I want to mention a couple of things, a couple of tips here. First off, again, it's okay to be embarrassed. Use this to your favor. One, it'll help you feel more comfortable that I'm embarrassed and I'm just going to admit it. Gosh, you're not going to like this offer. Not sure I feel comfortable even giving it to you. You might drag your feet a little bit before they just say, look, just tell me, it's okay. Okay? Secondly, I would advise, some different thoughts on this, I would advise to never tell the seller that it is your offer, you and you alone, as the owner. If you're a one-man or a one-woman band, it is to a disadvantage to basically say, I am the sole decision maker here, I make all decisions, because that opens up a lot more negotiation. If you have a spouse, you have a business partner, you have a company, it's very easy to ultimately say, this is what the company says I can offer. Your company has a formula that you can make ultimately. This is what the company said they can offer, and if somebody were to try to negotiate, well, I can go talk to the company and see what they'll do. Right? I could talk to my boss. If you're married, you might have a boss. Maybe you don't think of them that way, but they do, I promise you, right? So let the seller know that, again, that it's okay to say no. It's okay. If they're like, boy, I don't know if I could do that. Well, that's okay. You know, if it's not a fit, just say so and I'll get it. I'll understand. Because if you can get a no out of the way, then you can start to have a more candid conversation. I know this isn't going to work out for us now, so, but kind of since we have that behind us, how can I help you? What do you really think you need to get for the house? And sometimes people will start to open up. Now, in the rare instance where they're like, you know, I really needed $6,000 more than what you offered, you can say, well, gosh, maybe I could talk to the company and see if there's something they can do. If they say they're $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 apart, double your offer. Honestly, there's nothing you can do to make that work. All right. Next, we're going to talk about follow-up. The money is in the follow-up. 90% of the houses that I've bought in my company have come from the follow-up process. Now, truthfully, some houses that we've bought in the follow-up process, most houses that we bought, are within a few weeks. A week later, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, they've talked to who they need to talk to, they've slept on it, they've prayed about it, whatever it might be for them, and now they're ready to make the decision and move forward. Some have literally been months or even years later. In fact, we recently had a deal that we bought after we made our initial offer 54 months earlier. We just followed up monthly and said, would you be interested in selling your house? Have you sold it yet? Is there anything we can help with? Should we come out and take a look at it? And month in and month out, they effectively said, now, truthfully, most of the calls, which we use a virtual assistant to call for, most of the calls went to voicemail. We set another task and call again in 30 days, call again in 30 days. A couple times the number was disconnected. A couple times they said, no, we're just going to fix it up ourselves, or the house was vacant. They said, well, we might just move back into it. They said all sorts of stuff for 4.5 years until eventually saying, you know what, is that offer still good? I think we're really ready to sell now. And we ended up buying the house, right? Isn't that awesome? Follow-up is critical. If you are not a master at follow-up, you don't become an expert at follow-up, you're leaving money on the table. In fact, it's hard to run a profitable real estate investing business unless you get very good at follow-up. You should never stop calling unless they ask you to. That's another tip about follow-up. In this situation, I told you that we left lots of voicemails. There were a couple times where they hung up. Our admin said who he was. They hung up. They said, no, we're not interested in selling, but they never said stop calling. So we continue to call until they either tell us to stop calling or ask us to. Sometimes we ask them, gosh, I've been calling you for a while. Does it make sense to even call you anymore? Should I just stop calling you? Sometimes people will say, yeah, I'm probably never going to sell to you or at a discount like that, so no reason to call anymore. Sometimes they say, you know what, just keep calling me. I never know. You never know what's going to happen, right? That tells you that there's some opportunity there. It's also really critical that you're organized and take good notes. You want to keep everything in a central operating system. We call it a CRM, Customer Relationship Management System. It's really the brains of our business and our operating system, where we keep notes about every seller we've talked to, every house that we've looked at forever, and we can continue to log new information over time. So in summary, this was one of the more meaty lessons inside of the masterclass so far. I hope you got a lot of value out of it. The business operation stuff, again, is not sexy. Your ability to be successful in this business is to have a smooth operation. A smooth operation is actually a little bit boring, right? If there's a lot of drama going on in your operations, that means you're inefficient, you've got some problems. So I hope you got a lot of value out of this. I'll see you in the next lesson where we're going to talk about evaluating values. Hey everybody, just a reminder, thanks for watching this incredibly powerful masterclass lesson. I hope you got a lot out of it. Just a reminder that you can get access to all 10 of the training videos in this masterclass that we call the Ultimate Get Started in Real Estate Investing Training Program and Guide. You can get this supplemental guide, which is full of valuable copies of our contracts, checklists, the scripts we use when we talk to sellers, and so much more. Quite frankly, we've never given away all this free content before, so it's super powerful. To get access to all of this, you simply need to go to flipnerd.com/free training, and that's flipnerd.com/free-training to get access to everything. It's completely free, but we can't give you downloads on YouTube. You have to go over to our site to get them. You'll get immediate access, again, to all 10 lessons of this powerful masterclass. You'll get this free resource guide, and we'll share some other powerful, awesome content with you as well. So go on over to flipnerd.com/free-training now. You can register. See you on the other side.